Kiran, could you take us through what happens under the hood when a query comes in?
When a query comes in, when a user types in, because we actually sit in a way where we can able to connect to their HR systems, etc. So as a user profile, we build the profile of the user. That is the context we send it in the query, right? And also, first we will actually check the say toxicity or whether it's a spam query, etc., etc.
What has been the most surprising aspect of building an AI platform?
One thing actually happened with the ChatGPT released in November 2022 is it gave us a way where we can able to experiment the thesis way faster. All right. So before I need to have a lot of data, how to test it, whether the accuracy is correct or not. But now basically I have like a large language model where if I have a business thesis to actually test it, it is very easy just hitting an API just to perform whether my thesis is correct or not.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm Sajesh, and I lead community at Atomicwork. And today we have with us Kiran, the CTO of Atomicwork, to discuss how to build an AI assistant for the enterprise. I'll bring Kiran on board. Hey, hi, Kiran. Thanks for doing this. Very excited.
Hey, hi Sajesh, how are you?
Uh, so, before we dive into the session, just a quick housekeeping item. If you have any questions at any time during the session, just drop them down below and we'll try to address as many questions as possible at the end. Uh, Now, a quick introduction about Kiran for those of you who don't already know him. Kiran started Atomicwork in 2022 along with Vijay and Parsu. And previously, he was a part of the Freshworks founding team, where he headed the reliability and platform engineering. Uh, Kiran, like we've built multiple applications, and at Atomic Work, what we are doing is something completely different. So, for context for everyone, uh, your organization probably uses hundreds of SaaS applications, right? And all of these applications are now coming up with their own localized AI assistant. And what we are building is a service management platform, sure, but the AI assistant is a centralized uh, employee concierge that collects knowledge from multiple sources from all of these other platforms and from PDFs, from live websites, Confluence, SharePoint, you name it, right? And then synthesizes it and provides it in a readable format for the employee. And that's just on the surface. But Kiran, could you take us through what happens under the hood when a query comes in, and how does the assistant know uh, which knowledge source to go to, and what information to pick up, how to distill it down so that it's usable for the employee? Could you give us a rundown?
Yeah, so to give you a perspective, the our Atomic Work AI assistant does three things, right, broadly. So one is an enterprise search. Basically, it connects to any knowledge management platform the customers have it and squeezes in, chunks it, and stores it. And it can connect to any enterprise app which is already there in their organization system. It can be able to do a service management, can able to run a workflow. Okay, I'll just talk about the part on the enterprise search alone, right? So uh, if you actually see it how a journey of a query when a user types in how it actually goes into our AI platform is first we have three large basic modules. One is like a preprocessor, which how we actually deal with the query, and we actually have like an execution engine, like an intent engine, and then we have like a post processor, right? So when a query comes in, when a user types in, because we actually sit in a way where we can able to connect to their HR systems, etc. So as a user profile, we build the profile of the user. That is the context we send it in the query, right? And also, first we will actually check the say toxicity or whether it's a spam query, etc., etc. Then let's say whether we will actually check whether it's an ambiguous query or not. Let's say if it is ambiguous, we actually ask a follow-up question to the user, say that can you able to supply more information to us, and expand it. And we even rephrase the question based on the context, right? So the user has a context based on his location, title, or which department he's in, or he already made some conversations with that, right? Based on it, either we supply that context or do a context switch if he's actually asking a quite a different question, right? Then once we have this enterprise intent engine where it will determine based on what is this goal of this query, right? Based on the context as well as rephrased question, we'll ask, okay, what is the goal for it? The goal can be either IT, HR, or any other department which actually uses Atomicwork Assistant. And again, it can even go to subsections, right? Whether I'm doing like an IT knowledge query or I wanted to do like an IT action, which is like an API execution, or a HR action, HR query, etc. We even have subsections. I'm just giving you like a very top level view of it, right? Once it determines it, and it converts it. So if it is a KB query, it actually gets from our vector DB and relevant chunks and re-ranks it and actually generates an answer. We even have something on the post processor. I don't want to touch that now. Or else if it is an action, so that it will actually generate the API signature of that particular app, maybe for example Salesforce, so that it actually can construct that API signature and executes it, right? So that is how it can able to detect. So, and again, when we present the answer to the end user, right, we either give you most probable answer based on it, or else we can even give you like, okay, this can be the other matching answers, right, where he can able to see it, right? So that's the whole part.
Got it. And since enterprise, unlike consumer AI applications, and enterprise environments are high stake environments, right? And they require a certain level of stability and accuracy in the responses. What are we doing to ensure accuracy of the responses?
Okay, so maybe I can just say that, okay, use an LLM jet, right? So it is not going to work out as simple as that, right? So uh, to put it in like a very bad terms, right? So it is like garbage in, garbage out, right? So how you actually digest the data and store it, it actually starts there, right? When you look at it and like a 10,000 view of whatever we are actually doing, right? So we are doing a data ingestion and we are retrieving it based on the query and we are generating an answer, right? So it even happens at the ingestion layer where when we chunk the data, right, and store it in the vector database, we need to save the context. We can't say that, okay, I will actually keep the heading, maybe the paragraph which starts after the heading in some other chunk. You need a connection between these two, as well as for each chunk, they need to know some metadata about the document. Let's say, for example, it's like a leave policy document. You need to chunk it in a way that, okay, what are the possible questions you can able to ask on it, or when this document has it, or what is the version of this document. All these things can happen in the metadata, right? Then once you actually store it, right, in the retrieval, you need to actually pass in the context as well as the expanded query so that you can able to get the correct chunks, right? Then again, you can't actually just serve the chunks as it is, right? So you again re-rank it, saying that, okay, what is the possible, the first answer it can able to get, right? Once you have it, again, you need to, because the LLMs can hallucinate quite a bit, right? So again, you need to ask the LLM, okay, you actually re-ranked it and got these chunks and the sources. Okay, now tell me what is the source you got it from, so that it actually doesn't go out of the bound. So it actually can stay in the context, saying that, okay, I'm actually getting only from the knowledge sources you actually embedded in, right? I'm not actually going out of the bounds and getting it. Even then it can go out of the bound. So we use like an judge at the end, which actually just say that, okay, this is the possible question answer. Do you think that these two are good? If we use one model to actually generate this, but you can't use the same model to judge it, you need to use another model to judge it. But doing all these things in different formats will actually improve the accuracy. As you said, in enterprises, even a word, you actually jumble it, it is going to go out of bounds, right? But this is one part of it, right? As well as the product also needs to support something else, where some of the things, even the word changing or a generation also is not acceptable, right? Where it is like a very minimalistic FAQs, the user wants it to be presented as it is. So we have something called as a verified answers, where an admin can say that, okay, if this is the question, this is the answer, right? And also we also have a feature where the employees can also suggest like a possible Q&A pairs, right? So where admin go and say that, okay, this might be, can go to KP, right? So that we can able to improve the deflection for the queries what the employees can ask.
Got it. So that's a nice full circle. So just to summarize it, we start with knowledge management and ensure that the KB is populated with relevant knowledge articles, and then some sort of a retrieval system or a RAG, finds the right answer. Then there is a re-ranker that would rank the answers in terms of relevance to the question and provide the top answer. And I like the bit about verified answers, right? Like, so if any of you listening are in IT and have spoken to your colleagues in legal, there are certain cases where you would want the response to be a verbatim response. You wouldn't want the AI assistant to summarize, a legal, let's say, clause or something where you basically leave out something important, and like leave out important details. So verified, so essentially in those cases, the backend team determines that this is going to be the exact answer that's going to be sent to the user. Plus the next step would be user feedback and try to increase the accuracy of the answers and improve the robustness of the knowledge base based on this feedback loop, right? So that's great, Kiran. And let's say an organization starts using Atomicwork and at a smaller scale, let's say with IT, and then over time they use it for other teams, right? HR, facilities, even sales and marketing, right? What are we doing to ensure that even at scale, the robustness of the platform stays intact and like grows with the growth of the organizations?
So there are two parts to it, right? One is like a non-AI part, which are even those things actually needs to scale based on the enterprise needs, right? Let's say if I connect to a knowledge management system, we actually see is once you connect to a SharePoint, there will be tens of thousands of documents we need to actually process, store, as well as mimic their ACLs to us, right? So that for us, for Atomicwork, the infra is elastic in nature. In that sense, we can able to scale it as the need demands, right? So it is horizontally scalable as well as vertical. So we use a workflow system to actually ingest all this data, and also we self-host our vector DB, and so that we can able to expand as the demand needs it, right? So that we can able to have more capacity, so that we can able to increase. And also we need to play it in another way, where say all the data we can't able to ingest, right? So it is like it will be infinite. So we even do like a strategy called a no index search, which is basically how we can able to talk to their enterprise apps, so that these, because this data can be changed very frequently, there is no point actually syncing that entire data and storing with us, right? So that for those kind of a data, we kind of generate the query on the fly and get it, right? So this is on the infra side. There are multiple parts to it, but let's say for the knowledge management, this is the part which actually can be scaled independently. On the other side, on the AI, so we use an ensemble architecture, right? So which is like we are not dependent on one AI model. So we use multiple LLMs across for different kind of use cases, right? But I will actually pick up only one model, which is like, let's say, OpenAI 4.0, right? Let's say on an OpenAI 4.0, we actually uses Azure to do it. Instead of just using one model deployment, what we do is we actually boot up multiple deployments of Azure OpenAI, right? And we have written an router, in-house router, which um, uh, can able to distribute the traffic across the deployments, so that you don't, like, sometimes there is one deployment which actually doesn't work, so that it can gracefully can able to fall back to other, or there might be one deployment which is faulty, which is giving a lot of errors, so that it can go to another one, right? So for the client, it doesn't need to care which deployment actually works. It can able to go and can choose anything, right? So in that sense, the client doesn't actually adhere these any errors, etc. It can seamlessly able to serve by increase of traffic, right? What we have like 16 odd deployments, if I remember correctly. So which is like the minute rate limit will be multiplied by 16x. So the scale will be so high so that we can able to serve seamlessly.
That's great. And thanks for diving into the deep end and helping us understand, the intricacies of the architecture, Kiran. Now, I'd like to, go maybe one step high level and try and understand from a product perspective and a customer perspective, right? Based on the customer feedback that we've received, what are the top 2 or 3 aspects that enterprise look for in an AI assistant?
One thing is the foremost, right? So for a lot of people, a lot of enterprises, AI is like a black box, right? So they don't know what's happening in. So that, let's say, if they give a query, what is coming in, where it is coming in, or how we are actually serving the answer, etc. So they will look for a transparency in terms of, okay, oh, you serve me this question, so that what is the source of it, right?
Right.
And also, let's say if you are actually executing a workflow, they need like, okay, a prior approval before executing that action, right? I'm actually able to run a workflow like an giving app access. So I asked it so that you actually get an approval. Okay, this is what, whether you wanted it, so that you click on it so that it actually gets it, right? And also the deflection rate. So people employ AI assistants to improve the productivity, right? So where they wanted to know the metrics, that whether it is getting deflected or not, so that they need to know the clear metrics. Okay, who are the users actually asking? Let's say my sales department is actually able to get the answers or not, right? So that we actually have a knowledge assistant which actually proactively tells the admin, saying that, okay, oh, for this group of people or this department, your deflection rates are actually dropping, maybe because there is no enough knowledge being ingested, right? So that it is like a proactive nudge where it can able to tell people so that they need to act and can able to give, because the productivity or the experience of the user is at most important, right, in enterprises when they actually see it, how to do it, right? And the third, I would say, it is accuracy, right? So they wanted to know, like, oh, for this kind of queries, I have it, because there would be like hundreds of interpretations of the same query, whether we are understanding correctly or not as an assistant, and can able to serve it or not, right? So the accuracy is also like highly important for enterprises when they wanted to deploy an AI assistant in their ecosystem.
Got it, Kiran. I like what you said. For most people in general, AI is a black box, or LLMs especially. You don't understand what's happening. You just get a response and you're supposed to trust it. So yeah, transparency and trustworthiness in the system would help, and also human in the loop, right? A lot of IT agents are perhaps worried that a Gen AI assistant might impact their jobs, but yeah, IT is perhaps one discipline where you'll always need a human in the loop, right? And end users would always need uh, personal human touch with complicated issues. Perhaps for simple queries, they might want to talk to a bot and get on with their work. But yeah, this is great. So in terms of the end user experience, I would like to understand what happens when the query itself is ambiguous and it doesn't have a clear, the AI assistant doesn't have a clear next step. How does it proceed in that case?
Okay, there are two things, right? As I mentioned before, in our preprocessor, what we do it is, if we feel it is ambiguous, so we'll try to expand it based on the conversations it already have it in the context, right? So which is already done with the Atom or AI assistant. The other way, what we do it is, we actually ask back a question and try to get an clarified answer from the user. But the ambiguity doesn't actually end there, right? So you actually type in one word, you can actually ask a question and get back like a clarified question so that you can go into the flow. But the ambiguity happens even when we are fetching the results, right? So there is a way that there are like, you can ask for a service management case, a person can ask, I need a laptop. But let's say you have a catalog items, which is like a HP laptop and a MacBook, right? So for the assistant, it doesn't know which one to pick up, right? But based on it, there is a context saying that, okay, if that user is from development, so maybe they need a MacBook, etc. That is one way to look at it. But let's say if there is a management and they wanted to do it, so that we actually serve these two things as tiles, so that like an options where people can able to choose, right? So the ambiguity can happen like a pre as well as a post, so either parts of it.
Got it, Kiran. And uh, if you look at the last couple of years of building Atomic Work, right, what has been the most surprising aspect of building an AI platform? And like a second part of that question, perhaps the answer is the same, is what is the most underrated and overlooked aspect of building an AI first platform?
Got it. So, see, I'm primarily an application developer, right? So, I never had an AI experience before starting Atomic Quark. One thing actually happened with the ChatGPT released in November 2022 is like, it gave us a way where we can able to experiment the thesis way faster. All right. So before I need to have a lot of data, how to test it, whether the accuracy is correct or not. But now basically I have like a large language model where if I have a business thesis to actually test it, it is very easy just hitting an API just to perform whether my thesis is correct or not. Can I build some business logic on top of it? So, and it is getting better and better from the 2022. Now we are closing to 2024. So this is actually helping founders to actually innovate faster, can able to ship this business value to our customers way faster, right? So that is one predominant thing, right? So surprising fact, we wouldn't have imagined this if it didn't happen on that November 2022, right? So um, uh, the second one, right? So what is the most underrated thing people actually look at it? Again, comes to this, right? So the AI innovation is happening so fast, and you get models every other week or few, even sometimes every other day, right? So you need to have a very good evaluation data set for you to know whether you are actually doing better or not, right? Let's say there are multiple knobs in the platform or the pipeline where you can able to tune in, right? But you need to know whether you tuned in so that you are still correct or not. So putting answer, we actually worked with Ragas, right? So to actually get our data set as able to get our parameters right, they helped really well to get and get us into a good shape. But that is something which is overlooked. For experimentation, maybe you can able to do multiple different things, but your POC to prod, you need to have a certain data set saying that, okay, what I'm doing is correct. Okay, if I change something, I'm able to deliver it better, right? So somewhere to measure, okay, you're doing it right.
Got it. And contextual AI CEO Dow Kila said something similar to what you said uh, in an interview recently. And this is the guy who wrote the first paper on RAG, right? That back in the day when, like before ChatGPT, basically, a good AI developer had to be a machine learning expert and a PyTorch expert and so forth. These days, a good AI developer is more like a product person who or someone on a business level. Uh, so the way he put it in a very trite or blunt way is that now a good AI developer is someone who can call APIs, right? But I'm sure the right answer lies somewhere in between, where you have to understand the end user's use case, you understand the business context, you have to have a very product specific approach, and then understand how to bring the right off the shelf AI platform, or multiple, like what we are building is ensemble AI, multiple models together. But to understand which model is supposed to be used for what are the strengths, weaknesses, limitations, is where the research and development
Yeah.
comes in. So we are almost at the end of the 30 minutes, Kiran. We have a ton of questions. Let's look at audience questions and pick up as many as possible over the next 15 minutes, if that's okay.
Sure. Sure.
Okay, so one of the questions is around different industries, right? Like basically, what ITSM is fairly horizontal, and we sell to multiple companies from across industries, right? What are we doing to ensure that we are staying contextual, irrespective of which industry or which sector uh, the customer is?
Yeah, so it's actually like even for different industries, what is a general talk, right? So is different, right? So let's say we sell it to different industries, right? We have education, fintech, right? Different industries. Let's say for an educational kind of a customer, so a programming question is okay to ask, right? So that employees can able to ask that programming question and they can able to get some sample code out of it, etc. Right? But for a fintech person, oh, the assistant shouldn't actually respond to that, right? So what we do is we actually set boundaries, policies based on a tenant, right? We manage it most of this as placeholders during the runtime, right? For example, let's say you wanted to give few short examples to determine whether the query is a knowledge query or not. that few short examples actually differs from every tenant, right? Because your KB query questions are quite different from a different customer, right? So that can be fit. Also, what is a boundary that I shouldn't answer, which is like an AI assistant shouldn't answer, also actually fills at runtime, right? So where I can say that, okay, it shouldn't actually do any like a writing, like a creative writing, right? So where you can put that boundary where we adhere it, we can able to do it. Like that, we have like multi-dimensional policies where we can say that what can be answered, what can't be answered, or what is an example, or how you can able to determine for each of this, so that we can able to serve better when there is a user query outside.
Got it. That makes sense, Kiran. And another question is, when you're feeding a question along with the context to the LLM, have you ever come across a scenario where the context length was exceeded? And in that case, how do you go about it?
So let's say if there is a conversation of 100 odd messages, right? So we don't feed in all the 100 messages. Obviously, the LLM will actually hallucinate quite a lot when you actually feed in the full user history when you are actually doing the query. So what we do is we kind of generate a small snippet of summarization for like 5 or 10 conversations ahead, right? So, and also we try to context switch it when we add the new conversations, so that only a summary of it will actually go, not the entire plate, right? So yeah, there are models like say Command R will have a 150K context, which is like a full book, right? But still, we see it is not useful having like a whole length of context in the prompt, so that it will actually heavily hallucinate.
Got it. Thanks, Kiran. Another question, somewhat related, uh, is it actually expensive to ingest entire SharePoint or Confluence documents into vector embeddings?
In terms of the dollar amounts, it all depends on how you do it, how you are generating the embeddings and store it, right? For us, we are not using cloud, we are using an open source vector data store and self-hosted. The infra cost is not that much when you compare it. But the processing of it, obviously, it will have some dollar amount attached to it when we ingest it. But how we are ingesting with what model determines the cost of embeddings also, right? So we are a bit conscious in terms of when we are doing it and what we are doing it. And also, when we connect to a SharePoint in Atomicwork, it's not that we need to read the entire SharePoint, right? So even for our users, that's not the goal. So they usually go and select what are the SharePoint sites they wanted us to consume. So only those things will actually consume. But having it consumed as well as storing the context with us, as well as storing the connectedness between the chunks, etc., that gives like a higher accuracy when the employee actually queries for data.
Got it. Thanks, Kiran. Karan, hope it helps, and hope you're able to optimize the cost of uh, you know the LLM reading the Confluence and SharePoint documents. The next question is, when we are, let's say, building a feature or a module and we are going to ship it, right? Is there a minimum percentage threshold for the acceptance criteria before we move it to production? Uh, what is good enough for production level?
So, as I said, we have like a very good data set. What we do is because the entire platform is modularized, so one way or other, one of these modules will be touched, right? So that we even have the data sets which are very much inclined to that module. Let's say for a pre-process module or a post-process module, or we even have data set how you can actually able to scrap off PII data, right? So any sensitive data, those kind of a thing, right? So we have few thousand examples for each of these modules. So we have like an what you say, we use an LLM judge to judge, okay, what is the given answer, etc. And we use Raga score to tell us, okay, whether this is good enough to actually do it or not. But we do another test as well, which is like on the security wise, where now the pen test is not happening through an web app, right? So now the malicious content is coming from a conversation, right? So now people try to jailbreak it so that you can able to get the system prompts, right? Or you're actually tricking the model to do the things which you wanted to do, etc. So we use another product to actually do like a pen test on our natural language service, which is both in on the model side as well as our prompt side. Both of the things will be tested on it, right? So these are the two minimal acceptance we have it. Apart from the functional aspects, I'm talking about only on the AI side of the things. These are the two things we clearly wanted to be passed even before we actually push to production.
Got it, Kiran. And uh, another question is around MSPs, right? So ITSM tools are also used by managed service providers to cater to multiple clients, right? Uh, do we have currently, or I'll just rephrase the question a little bit. Do we plan to bring in multi-tenancy so MSPs can manage multiple clients for, let's say, management, reporting, billing, etc.?
So right now we are actually what you say segregated to workspaces so that each workspace can be an org itself, right? So in that sense, if they can manage, even now they can able to manage it within different workspaces, having agents, etc. But as an MSP, how we can able to do it, that will be like down the line. I don't see it in the very near future.
Got it. Uh, and so here's a question about the LLM specifically and the information in the LLM. What's the process and how difficult is to modify and change information once it has been ingested into the LLM? I'm guessing that's as simple as addressing or altering the underlying knowledge base
Oh,
source. But
yeah. Yeah, so for us, it's actually like we don't train any of the data. We are to actually fine tune any of the LLMs. We'll actually use the LLMs as it is out of the box, right? But changing the data in the knowledge source, how we are ingesting it, we actually do it very regularly so that it's a very easy process. You can actually can replace your previous data with it, right? So we maintain a checksum whether to ingest or not. Based on the checksum, we'll actually see whether we need to re-ingest the data or not, right? So that is pretty easy. But as we don't train any of the models, so that we are not concerned about the knowledge what the LLMs already possess, right? So in that sense, we will be okay.
got it. And there's another question about multiple assistants. What do you think about multiple assistants working together in which, let's say there are assistants for IT and HR and so forth. Uh, how do you think of those use cases?
Yeah. So to put it in a like a very layman terms, right? So like a multi-agent approach. In a simple term, right? So we are even on the knowledge, we are actually doing an agentic approach because we have different sources of knowledge as well as different apps. This actually becomes like a tools for us internally, so that picking up the right tool to execute itself is the simplest agentic approach, right? But now we are actually working on things where we are actually having specialized agents for IT, HR, knowledge, etc. And also we have a master agent which can able to orchestrate between them, right? Let's say, for example, you get a query that VPN is slow, so you can able to ask an agent saying that AI agent saying that, okay, what are how I can able to solve this, right? It can able to get ask the knowledge agent to give me what are the most resolved tickets when the VPN is slow. So that, let's say, it gives the information and it again passes back to the human agent, right? But the human agent again nudges it and saying that, okay, maybe this is not the information I'm looking at. Maybe I'm looking at some other information. So that again, it reinforces it, okay, reacts, and then picks up a new knowledge article and able to send it. I strongly feel like agents which can able to do very, very specific tasks and can able to coordinate with the other agents seamlessly and can able to store the current context as well as the historical context. That is where most of this assistance is going to go for.
Got it. For all of you listening in, we are planning another deep dive session with Arkajit, who's working on agentic AI within Atomicwork specifically. So be sure to subscribe and follow the channel so you stay updated with that session, where we'll specifically talk about the master agent talking to an IT agent and HR agent, so forth, to be able to provide a much more contextual and much more rich and tight answer. The next question is about vector databases, right? Like, what's your best option for a vector DB, and what challenges has the team run into while with vector DBs?
From the start, we were using VB8 vector database, and it is self-hosted in it. But we looked at a couple of things to pick up that particular vector database, right? So we are a multi-tenanted system, which means that it needs to have a native multi-tenant support, right? I'm talking about we deployed this maybe in say 23 starting or something like that, right? After that, there are a lot of other vector databases came in, but we didn't had a reason to move out of VB8. So we wanted native multi-tenant support is one, and we needed a filtering approach because we add different dimensions to it so that we can mimic the ACLs of the external systems, so that we can able to query and don't give answer which the user shouldn't get it, right? And also we wanted a hybrid search, right? So where you can able to do a keyword as well as a semantic search and can able to get a score where we can alpha score and where we can able to give the answer to the end user, right? So those are the few reasons, but to be frank, until now we were able to we are very well versed with Kubernetes, so we were able to happily scale the data plane of VB8. In that sense, we didn't hit any like hurdles using VB8 until now.
Got it, Kiran. Since we have just 2 minutes to go, I'll pick a question that might be helpful to pretty much everyone, and it's a fairly generic and generally applicable question. Is what approaches would you suggest to improve latency?
Okay, so this is how it is, right? So not all LLMs are made to perform. Okay, if you take, let's say, if you just wanted your ITSM or a HR kind of a knowledge, so you don't need an LLM which actually knows ancient history, right? So it doesn't make any sense. But if you take only the core functionality of an LLM, maybe you might need like a less than a billion parameters, right? So very, very small, right? Otherwise, for even a hello, there will be a lot of flops it needs to take to consume and give you the data. So what we do it is that is where we are spending most of our time. So where for what kind of a query, what is the kind of an LLM we need to use where we can able to serve it way faster. Let's say if you wanted to do like a general greeting, you don't need a huge LLM. You can just do a very, very small model to serve those answers, right? So let's say you wanted to do an intent recognition, you need a very fine-tuned or a trained LLM rather than a generic LLM to do it, right? So distillation of the model is what we see it. It is going to reduce latency. Obviously, we see the speed of these models are increasing. Also, with the new hardware like Grok or Cerebras, these kind of hardware is coming in, which actually reducing the latency way, way, way faster, right? So this is a two-way approach. It's like for different specific users, use a specific model. If it is smaller, use a small model which can able to serve better. And the second one is the hardware also, it is coming into reach, and mostly these things will get upgraded where the latencies will actually can come down.
Great. Thanks so much, Kiran. We're just over time, but I'd like to thank everyone for the wonderful and inquisitive questions. And thanks for joining in. Thanks for sticking around. Uh, Kiran, any last words or any specific advice that you would want to distill in maybe one sentence for anyone who's starting out with an AI first architecture?
So I would say experiment more. Don't actually think of too much in terms of when you're doing your first thing. But if you look at POC to production, it's not that easy. The POC can be like a Twitter demo, can happen in a couple of hours, but your production will actually take a few months to it, right? So, uh, uh, I mean, as I told before, actually have a good evaluation data set so that you can able to test your thesis, so that you can able to push to prod way faster.
Got it. Then for those of the audience members who asked questions but we were not able to address them, how can they reach you in case they'd like to send you?
Yeah, you can reach me over Twitter, like Kiran Darisi. You can tag me. I can able to answer or DM, etc. Or my LinkedIn. LinkedIn is also okay where I can able to answer.
Super. Thank you so much, Kiran. Thanks for sharing your insights and expertise, and thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thanks, Sajesh. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Take care. Bye.